Welcome Yamhill County to Speaking Frankly. I'm your host, Howie Harkema, and our tagline is, "And how we doin'?" Today I have two great guests with me. Josh Rojas, who's the candidate for the Board of Commissioners, Position 1. Thank you, Josh, for being here.
Thank you, Howie.
And I have his campaign manager, Annette Madrid. Thank you so much for being here, Annette.
Thank you for having us, Howie.
Wow, Josh. What made you decide to run for county commissioner's seat?
Well, some people say that I'm crazy for even thinking about it, because with a full plate with work and family, that what was I thinking? But I think a lot of it comes down to, the influences in my life. So it started back probably in preparing me for this for a while now, and the influences that people in this community had on me. Mm-hmm. The growing up here, the living here, the different experiences I had here, and being involved at Linfield College, as my grandfather was a professor there for 32 years. I got to tag along growing up as a child, and his constant advocating for other people, and always trying to make a difference in the community. He was always involved in something. And then myself going to Linfield and my experiences there. And as I became an adult, shaping that with my wife now teaching at Amity, and the opportunity she has there, and the experience of where I'm at now, and just seeing all the different changes that are happening, but the influences that have shaped me, not realizing that kind of put me where I'm at. And then sitting on the board with Annette for the county union, and just working through those processes and those things that were happening on top of my job, and getting to experience each community in the county.
Yes.
And seeing the challenges that every family and every community is facing, and knowing that I'm limited to what I can do with my job, or what I can do as the union president, or what I can do as an individual. I came to the realization I wanted to do more. And I know it's not, making policy change or doing things like that, but realizing that I had the ability to make difference in Yamhill County for the betterment of the future for my kids, so they can have those same experiences, and so other families can. That really, I think, pushed me to a point where I finally jumped in and said, okay, I really want to do something different. I want to make a difference in the community. I want to make an impact for that reason of just serving. And I think everybody should have that opportunity. And in that commissioner position, I realized, just watching how they worked and the opportunities they have that ability to make some big changes. Yes. That can really impact lives. So that really, I think, spurred me. I've been talking to Annette about it for a couple years now, and the timing was right. And so I decided that at this point in my life to make a run at it.
That's fantastic. And now you won't just serve your union constituency, you'll be able to serve the entire population of Yamhill County if you win this race.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different challenges that our community as a whole, the county as a whole, is facing. And I think that being able to do that on a bigger level,
yes,
it's not so much, the power itself, that it's being able to make the change.
Right.
And I think too many people have this negative perspective on leadership and politics with where we're at today. But I think changing that, as and I tell people, I'm not a politician, I'm an advocate for change.
Right.
And I want to make sure people understand that, whether I win or lose. I want to make sure that we're educating people on what's going on, so that they do have buy-in, because every decision that happens and everything that's happening now impacts somebody in some way. They just don't realize that because they don't understand what that is.
Well, bringing awareness is always a good thing.
Yes.
I'm going to jump in here for
Please.
just a minute, too, since you said this is our three-way
Yeah.
conversation. For as long as I've known this young man, going on 5 years now, I think one of Josh's, and he's modest, he doesn't like to talk about himself, so I'll give you a little bit of a background. He is, obviously a very decent and caring young man, but also a real avid student of history. And he wants to understand not only what's happening in the present, what happened in the past, how did these policies get shaped? And I think one of his best strengths is his desire and his skill in what we call strategic planning, looking not just at the immediate impact of some policy
But the
decisions
downstream,
today,
yeah.
but 5 years, 10 years, 50 years
Yeah.
down the stream. And every, I'll call him homework assignment that I've ever given him, he wants more, he wants more, he wants more. And he has a real respect, I think that came out in his opening comments, for his elders.
Yep.
He is comfortable in people with all walks of life, and that's his job. That's what he does for his job. And I've just found that very refreshing to see young people, stepping up to the plate that want to have an investment in the future, who want to do things very thoughtfully and very responsibly.
So as his campaign manager, what have you advised him to do through this process
Think.
before you react?
He's not a reactive person.
That's good.
Which I think is a huge plus. For as long as we've been talking about Josh potentially going into public office, this has been a years-long process. And not necessarily spurred by poor decisions, going along at the county, but by, I think, a genuine desire to make things better. And to say, for your children, for your grandchildren, things are in a delicate balance now. I think ecologically, with our farmland,
Yes.
lots of topics, and I'll get off my little horse here, but that's been my experience in my dealings with Josh Rojas.
So Josh, what is your background and how has your background prepared you for this office?
Like I said, I think the whole the piece of learning to lead by example, learning to advocate for those, listening to everybody, not just looking for those that it impacts the greatest, but those that are somehow impacted down the line. Every job that I've taken and I've worked through, I've always wanted to expand on it because I always think you can do more. Mm-hmm. I know with the county commissioners and answering other questions, they're like, well, how is that the county commissioner's responsibility? And to expand on it, I would answer the question, it's not just a local city government, but it's the county's responsibility for the overall health of the county. So making sure that we're working together. And I think having that understanding, again, working, so I work right now, my job for the county is as a wraparound coordinator and coordinating services for high needs youth, whether they're in the juvenile justice system or their high needs mental health, to avoid them being placed in like residential care or maybe the Oregon Youth Authority, which is like the juvenile prison system. We collaborate with all different kinds of agencies, so DD services, DHS, schools, juvenile justice. Sometimes I'm coordinating with other counties when they have foster kids that come here.
Sure.
And I know that each one of those different agencies or providers have their own mandates that they have to follow. They have their own rules, and that's understandable. But what's changed is we come up with these plans together, so we collaborate. And being able to still have each group follow their mandates, what their responsibilities are, but come together and make movement to create a plan that helps these youth be successful, not just the youth, but the families, to where it's long-term success. It's not something that we just manage care, which in the past, for years it was that. You had families that were just managing.
Absolutely.
So seeing that can be done on an agency level, that all have their own mandates, it made me realize that you can work together, still following your own mandates, still following your own protocols, and still work together for success. And if we can do that on a level where it is difficult, because again, like you're talking about, schools have different mandates than juvenile justice.
Sure.
DHS has state mandates. If they can come together and create these plans where we have an evidence-based results, I mean, I know with the kids that I've worked with, at least a 90% graduation rate, and those families are sustaining that. Why can't countywide, I was questioning, why can't we do that with local city governments working together with the county to come up with solutions for the situations? And then I think it tied even more to my understanding of it when we went into contract negotiations, understanding the union position. I kind of threw my hat out there because nobody else wanted the position as president. But I took it as it was very, and people understand there was some conflict there.
Sure.
But when I started out there, I wanted to take a look at that position differently. I said, what can we do to make things better between management and employees so that we can come up with a solution where we're working effectively, we're saving money, and using those resources to the best of our abilities instead of wasting time, high turnover, things like that, and then making sure that those results are impacting the community for the better of the community. And I think some people even on the board thought I was out of my mind. But for me, that creating that atmosphere of, again, collaboration, working together, to me, again, it's a way that we can impact more people in a positive way and come up with better solutions, because working against each other doesn't get any kind of results. In fact, it creates more issues. It wastes, I think, taxpayers' dollars, and it doesn't help the people that really need it. And so that kind of, I think, shaped my thinking, shaped my background, and what I wanted to do. I know some people have questions because of the stuff that was kind of put out there in the public eye as far as, contract negotiations and going on strike, and being asked, well, is this because the union is pushing this? No, this was my own decision. Before I even started in the union, I was heading in this direction to run, because it's more of making change for me. And I can explain my points, but I think I want people to see me for me, and not that I'm a union activist, or I'm not a county employee, but I'm somebody who stands up for what I believe in. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be accountable, and the community that shaped me, I have an investment here. Because the community invested into me, I want to give back. And that's where I stand on it. And I hope people see that, whether they vote for me or not. That's what I want people to hear.
Right. And there's a preponderance maybe in the media to use labels, things like activist or advocate.
Sure.
And personally, I would proudly wear either of those. I think when
I do.
When you, we know, that's why we're here. But when you work for Health and Human Services, that is the core of what we do. We do advocate for people.
Right.
We are activists for change. Certainly there's always room for improvement. And I think when you go in with the humility, the hard work, the understanding that you're going to be disappointed a lot of the time, but yet you still keep coming back looking for good solutions, that's at the core of this young man's being. And there were some dark times there, and believe me, when you're carrying fiducial responsibility for 320 odd employees on your shoulders for almost 9 months, I would say most of these gray hairs were in place before that, but it's a heavy load.
Mine weren't.
Yeah. Well, number one, collaboration is the key to solving a lot of our problems, period.
Yeah.
And being accountable and being transparent is extremely important. So,
well, and I know we talked about it with the housing piece, and I know that, and the homelessness, and even the schools. A lot of people don't realize all these things are tied together.
Yes.
And that collaboration piece, as we saw as the city council met on Monday around the caravan, that all those things are tied together. That's a solution that has to be done countywide.
That's correct.
As a county commissioner, I feel like they have that ability to bring those local city governments together to find a solution that's across the board. You know, doing my research and trying to understand, not reinventing the wheel, not trying to do it ourselves, like looking at, okay, what have other counties done? What have other places done? And to be successful to address those issues.
Yeah.
I know they had the St. Vincent de Paul out of Eugene they were talking about that program where they are working with the homeless, and I felt it was very effective. They have great relationships, and it comes back down to what you said, collaboration.
Yep.
As a county-wide process, the county of Boulder, Colorado, I just did some research recently looking at that, and they are actually doing just that. They are collaborating with the local city governments, local agencies, and they're doing it together. And their goal is to, by 2035, to have 15% of the housing in that county being allocated for low, moderate, and I think it's middle income people. And what they're doing is they're looking at maybe some taxation, but they're also looking at tax credits for builders who are willing to build. Different companies that are willing to not do rate increases, giving them tax breaks, making changes for zoning, anything to do that. They understand there needs to be a balance, and we know that. But this housing piece is impacting more than just the homeless, more than that. And that's what I try to explain to people, that it's a very layered situation, because now this is starting to impact not only the living situations, but our economic situations.
Yes.
Because then you have jobs. If you don't have housing to house workers,
Right.
you can't bring in, companies are going to look, and they're not going to want to develop companies here if their workers cannot live here. You have,
Or just a lack of housing.
yeah, we talked to a couple business owners even on Third Street who said, this is impacting us. We are starting to run out of workers that we can hire because they can't afford to live here.
Right.
I know that talking to a person who's involved with economic development in the area said that, you know, they're trying to recruit companies to come in, but they're seeing that housing piece as a major issue. The schools, for instance, there was just, I know, like a forum up in Portland where they were talking about it, which is what we're experiencing here. The schools, you have kids being pulled out mid-year or having to transfer to wherever they're living. We don't necessarily tie homelessness into families that are living with other families, but when they have to move and are uprooted out of their homes, they're now living in homes with other people. One, you lose that, any kind of tax money they get from being able to pay their own bills in their own place. But now you have them moving into some of the maybe more rural communities in our county where it might be cheaper, or living with family members, and that puts pressure then on the schools because they have to take them into their school district. And so you have classrooms that are built in those rural communities for 16, 18 kids that are now housing 30 kids. Their classrooms are packed. The pressures that come along with getting services out into those rural communities. So the cost, being able to come together and find a solution will do nothing but benefit the county as a whole economically.
And the taxpayers.
And the taxpayers. There's so many layers, and I think as candidates, sometimes people are just focusing on just the words. Affordable housing, homelessness, agricultural, economic growth, those things. We have to look at it as layers, because all these situations are tied together.
And it really just comes down to one thing, quality of life.
Yep.
It's exactly right.
It's everyone's quality of life.
Right.
Old people, young people, people with families.
Well, it's across the board.
Young people coming out of school that realize, gee, I'd like to move from mom and dad's. There's nothing here that's available, number one, and or that I could ever afford.
Well, a lot of people are commuting to McMinnville on a daily because they cannot afford the housing here.
We talked with some representatives from Hood River, which is a very similar, almost sister city to McMinnville. And they were saying that they had very similar situations going on there. They have people commuting from Portland.
Yes.
And I'm talking, $12 an hour jobs
Right.
to work in Hood River.
Well, we're 2/3 all the way through already, so we're going to have to jump on this. So we talked about affordable housing a little bit and the homelessness issue. Would you like to talk about tenant alliance and protection of the people who...
I think that's a huge issue that I deal with just with the families I work with.
Right.
I know that this last September, there was all of a sudden this jump in increase in rates
Yep.
across the board.
Happens about every 6 months.
And for the families that we work with, we were asking single parents and families that are really trying hard, going to school, working full time,
Right.
raising their kids. We're asking them to not use assistance and to do something. But that small amount, I think some of the places were $50 to $75, that little amount raised was enough to have them have to move out of their home, because they're just making it.
Right.
While trying to better themselves. And I think that you have outside companies that are making these decisions coming in, and do I want to dissuade any of them from coming in and doing business here? No. But do I think we need to start taking a look at limiting what those increases can be at times? Yes, because it's getting to a point where we do have people coming from out of our area where they can afford those rate increases, because places like Portland where it's absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, it's astronomical.
Right.
Yeah, or talking about people coming up from California that can afford to pay whatever they're being asked.
Cash out.
Yeah, because they cash out for $1 million on a tiny little dwelling they sold.
So,
And the other thing is the way the neighborhoods are being decimated by all the rental properties.
Right.
So
being able
adds to the housing.
to have some say. Now, we don't want to prevent progress, but we also want to be respectful and know that if we take away these affordable housing for families and not protect the tenants that are in them, we're going to lose workers, which is going to affect the economic piece.
Let's talk about that. Sustainable economic development.
Well, first we have to get that first piece under wraps. We really need to take a look at that before I think companies are going to come in. They're going to evaluate and see. It's great that we've had a great a wine boom where there's the agricultural and
Right.
tourism piece that's coming in. But even the study that there was an assessment done of Yamhill County and came out last year in February, and it talked about needing to come up with jobs that have livable wages for families.
Yes.
And needing to have those in place. I think looking at some of these different, take the paper mill, for example, that's sitting there. Somehow coming up a way to present a property like that, or present to a company to want to move into places that are already there,
Right.
that are just vacant lots,
Right.
to develop there. How do we entice them? How do we bring them in to want to bring in business, to develop jobs for this community? Finding different ways of collaborating with the different local agencies or local governments.
Sure.
What can we do to entice some of
Right.
these businesses to come in, but show that it's going to be sustainable and it's not going to be something that's going to die out. I think taking a look at that economic piece again is going to take a huge effort of working together. But I think that not just building on property, because we know that at times that poses a challenge to do and takes time. But if we already have businesses that are already vacant and that we can develop there, why not entice some businesses to come in and take over those or to develop on those properties?
Sure, if you can give them a tax incentive and a reason and a lower property value, like SP Newsprint, sitting there idle, perfect scenario for exactly what you're
Yes.
talking about.
Put a solar farm there.
Exactly, because they don't want it on farmland.
Right.
Why not put it on?
Right. And these are the kinds of things that the county commissioners control. Land use, roads.
Yep.
These are all very important, stake and to the people that live here and the ongoing quality of life.
So would you like to talk about any upcoming meet and greets and where and when and the different townships and cities throughout Yamhill County?
For me, the goal is to we're working on setting up in each different community.
Sure.
For me, I like the face-to-face, the meet and greets. Doing these mass meetings and debates where we expect people to come to see us
Right.
is not. I feel like that's reflective of where we're at now, where these communities are like, we don't see the commissioners except during election time. And that's not to badmouth them, but if we aren't getting out to their community to where they're at, how do we expect them to trust us enough to listen to our ideas? So trying to set up, I know we're working in each of the local communities to set up housing events.
Yes.
Where we're at the houses, we're meeting people.
House parties.
House parties. We do have some debates and forums coming up. So
I've got quite a list. I was just going
Go
to say,
ahead,
I'll run down
Annette.
and just say, we are working on events in Amity, Carlton, here in McMinnville, Willamina, Newburgh, Hillside Manor, we'll be out and see you. Ken Moore, you said I could do this?
Yes, absolutely.
Has invited us to be on his show.
Good.
So we'll be on Ken Moore's coming up on Old School, March 28th. And in addition, I'll just toot our horn here a little bit. The Yamhill County Employees Association takes its civic responsibility very seriously, and we do have candidate forums for all the elections. This year, of course, the sheriff is running uncontested. There are no state house positions, but we have 7 people, including the 2 incumbents, running for county commissioner.
Right.
And we have 5, originally it was 6 and 1 has withdrawn, 5 folks running for the 1 judge's position.
Right.
So Yamhill County Employees Union will be having at the McMinnville Senior Center on April 17th, which is a Tuesday night, starting at 6:30, open to the public. We have invited all of the Board of Commissioners candidates on April 17th at the McMinnville Senior Center on McDaniel Lane. And then we got authorization among our board to, since there's so many candidates, to
Right.
divide it up. The following Tuesday, April the 24th, we have invited all the judge candidates. Same time, 6:30. So 6:30, April 17th, which is a Tuesday for the Board of Commissioners. Tuesday, April 24th, 6:30 at the Mac Senior Center for all the judge candidates. Open to the public. Sure hope you come.
Well, and I'd just follow up too to let people know in that role, since my role is as the president of the YCEA, I've in these discussions and in these planning, and when it comes to these races, I have stepped back because I feel like it's my responsibility to make sure that they're remaining neutral, that the decisions that
Sure.
are being made move forward. So it's my responsibility to pull back from those. So these are things that
So
they've
you
set
don't
up.
get to ask the questions this time.
No,
You
I
have
don't
sit
get
up
to
there.
ask any
You
questions.
had to recuse yourself
Yes,
so
sir.
that, yes, I totally
He'll be up at the
understand.
days. He won't be asking the questions.
It won't last long. So let's talk about working with city mayors, city councils, networking and joint efforts, collaboration to accomplish job growth, because we're running out of time.
I honestly think that if I can have that opportunity, because I know each commissioner has different responsibilities, my push publicly, whether constituents like it or not, is going to be moving together to create some kind of committee, if it's possible, to bring those mayors and those city council together under one roof. It's going to be a lot of work because I understand schedule, but if we're all intent on solving this issue and other issues, I think trying to form that group as soon as possible and working with them by whatever means necessary. If we have to meet in each community separately, I think that's what it's going to take to do. And for me, that's important. I love networking. I love getting to know people, but on their turf and their time, not mine. Because as a leader, my job is to be a public servant and not to just think that because of where I'm at in my position that people need to come to me. It's my job to serve.
So I know that when we wrote the End Homelessness 10-year plan, a contingent of us went out to every township and held meetings. That's exactly what you're talking about here.
Yes.
If you can't get them under one roof, do it at each individual township and city.
Yes, whatever it takes.
Right. So we have run out of time. And thank you so much, Josh, for running number one. And I wish you
I appreciate your
the
time.
very best of luck. And Annette, thank
See
you
you
for
at the
jumping
forum.
in. Yes, and you'll see me upstream everywhere with you guys.
Thank you,
Next
Howard.
time we have Casey Kula, who's also running for this same position.
Yes, sir.
He'll be on next time. If you want to get involved with Josh Rojas, running. You can get a hold of them through the Facebook page, through the phone number that's been coming up throughout this entire video, and through his website. And if nothing else, you can also call MCM here, and I think that they would be glad to give the information as well.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Yamhill County, for watching. Let's stay involved. Let's be the change.
Yes.
Thank you very much for watching today.
Thanks, Howie.
Thank you.
Thank you.